if we want to set this maximum flow on such a PICV, first we have to think about how much is this maximum flow. This is usually derived from the power formula. And then we can go into the data sheet, which we see here. And you see for this data sheet, for this specific valve, we have 3 lines. The first line is the flow in liters per hour. The second line is the dial setting for the setting of the maximum flow. And then the third line shows the delta P min in kilopascal. That's the minimum required pressure that the pump has to provide in order for the delta P controller, the pressure differential controller in the valve, to work properly and to make sure that then the control valve itself can work with a stable condition without any disturbances. Now for our example, we would like to have about 600 liters of water per hour, which we see here in the first line, 610 liters, that's very close. And then we see the corresponding dial setting in the second line is 1.8. And in the last line, we see the delta P min for the pump to provide as a minimum pressure is 18.8 kilopascal. Now let's have a look on how to set this maximum flow on this threaded PICV. This is a PICV for a medium-sized setup, and as we saw before, we would like to limit the flow to about 600 liters per hour, and that corresponds with a dial setting of 1.8. In order to set this dial that we have here, which is now currently set to 4, fully open, we first have to loosen this counter nut, which secures the dial in place, and then we can turn the dial and set it to the desired value, which is 1.8. And then, of course, we have to secure the counter nut again so that this setting stays in place when the PICV is working. And with that, the hydronic balancing is done. On this PICV type, the setting of the maximum flow is at the bottom, but basically the same as we saw before. In this case, we would like to limit the flow to about 300 liters per hour, which corresponds to a setting of this dial of 2.8. First, of course, we have to loosen the counter nut, and then we can turn the dial and set it to 2.8. And then secure this position again with the counter nut. And with that, the maximum flow is set to 300 liters per hour. We see here an even smaller valve. This is a PICV that is used for radiators, for example, and we can also here set the maximum flow. Of course, this is a much smaller amount of water flow, and now we want to look how to set this water flow. In order to set the maximum flow, first we have to remove this protection cap. And this protection cap is also the tool that allows us to set the flow. So we can turn it around, and now we see this mark here on the protection cap is aligned with the dot on the valve, which means it is fully open. And now we can turn this tool and set it to the position 3, as we saw before, which corresponds to 50 liters per hour. And with that, the maximum flow is limited and set for this radiator PICV. We see here now a much bigger type of PICV with a flange connection. This is really for large volumes, several cubic meters per hour. And also on this type, we can set the maximum flow here on top with this scale to the desired value. Let's now set the maximum flow to the desired value of 36 cubic meters per hour. That's 36,000 liters per hour. And for that we need this small wrench so that we can turn the valve stem from its initial position 4 to the desired position 3, which represents the 36 cubic meters. And you can see the scale goes in both directions. This is because this valve inside is constructed in a symmetrical way. And so we can turn this now to 3 with the help of this little wrench. And now it's set to 3.